Second is because there's certain principles that are true across the country. And so I've learned a lot about being able to talk to attorneys in other states and find out there's similarities to what we do and differences. It also makes it effective when it comes time for a referral. Really excited to have today somebody who I've had on my YouTube channel before, but first time on Probate Weekly, Nicole Harvey, who is from Sparks, Nevada, just outside of Reno, Nevada. Nicole, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And now, those of you watching, if you have questions, feel free to jump in, to raise your hand, put in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question live, we'll take those questions. And then those watching on YouTube later as well, ask questions, and either I'll get to them or get them to Nicole, and we'll follow up with them as well. And then just kind of for those who are watching, if you want to register for getting notifications live, probateweekly.com is the website. Probateweekly.com, and you can go there and sign up. All we ask for is your email address. If you want text reminders, you can put your phone number in as well, and we'll get you there. And then we continue the conversation in Facebook, our Facebook group, Probate Weekly. We have over 4,000 members there from around the country who answer questions. You can go there for finding referrals or getting referrals, and love to have you guys continue to do that. Thank you to everybody who supported this channel. We've just went over 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is a great accomplishment. We're the fastest growing probate real estate um, uh, podcast, yeah, as well as the biggest in terms of viewers and the biggest in terms of subscribers. So thank you so much for all your support in that. So Nicole, let's go back to the beginning in probate real estate. How long have you been a practicing attorney, and how long that time you've been in probate and avoiding a probate through a proper estate planning?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I was licensed in 2008. I passed the bar right after law school, and I've been practicing here in Nevada ever since. Um, I think I took my first probate case in 2009, so maybe a year after that. And that really set my feet on a path in terms of developing estate planning and probate as a practice area.
And so I think of, as a layperson, probate as you didn't do the proper estate planning, and estate planning avoiding probate. If you were to divide your practice, how much is probate and how much is estate planning?
Mm. Probably a third and a third. To be fair. I also do a fair amount of business general counsel work. And I find that, my clients it's all the same person. The
Right.
person who needs estate planning probably needed a probate parent's estate and, owns a small business. Um, but I will have to respectfully disagree. I think that probate does have a place sometimes even in a carefully crafted estate plan. I think of the probate process as a sometimes unavoidable transaction, right? And if you have a trust and you're prepared to administer the transaction through the trust, you may not have to avail yourself of the court process. But I've encountered, families with certain dynamics where they think, it's probably a better idea if we have a judge sort of sign off on each step because we know that, people are going to dispute or argue, and it almost protects the administrator in that case that they have somebody with authority that looks over their shoulder and approves each step as they move through it. And really, at the end of the day, the process of trust administration and probate administration are largely similar in the steps that you take and in what your objective really is at the end of that process. The difference being court supervision, right? So sometimes, that court supervision is really unnecessary, and it's great to set up a plan to help people avoid that because there's certainly additional costs and time associated with that process. But I don't think it's necessarily the big horrible evil that must always be avoided.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
guess we'll disagree.
And
Uh,
you know what?
hey,
Maybe things are different in California.
oh
There may be
yeah.
points there that I don't deal with here.
Oh, everything's different in California. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it is. Maybe I will say when I've gone to court, and it's particularly different in Los Angeles. I've gone to court in Orange County, and the judge like welcomes you. Hi, how you all doing today? Where you from? LA, you don't get that at all. It's a whole
Mhm.
nother experience. So
Yeah.
hey, real quick, shout out Ann Bollinger. Great comment that we're gonna get back to executorium. Thanks for jumping in today and saying hi to Nicole. But thank you for the comment about executorium. One thing she said in passing that's so important, I think, for real estate agents. Unfortunately, the companies that promote probate as a niche for realtors' business development will encourage two things. They'll say, buy the data and cold call petitioners, which is either illegal and or nobody likes being cold called, or by the data and cold call attorneys, which again may or may not be illegal, but certainly attorneys don't like being cold called as a general rule. But you went over quickly something that I think everybody should pay attention to, which is if you remember when I asked her where business came from, she said a third probate, third trust, and a third general counsel. And what she's saying is she has regular business clients. Maybe they come to her for some litigation reason or commercial transaction or setting up a business. And in the course of that, that great client has a need for either probate services or estate planning services, and she's the natural person they go to. And so for many of us, we may not know probate attorneys or estate planning attorneys, but we know general counsel attorneys. And either A, they have to do a probate once in a while, or B, they need you to introduce them to a great probate resource to bring to their customer. My best business has come from an attorney who is, I knew him for 25 years as a general attorney, but the best business I've gotten have been from him to major clients where his best clients were owned big businesses. They had a lot of real estate that had to be sold and had a chance to. So again, I just want to gloss that over that for those of you watching, it's about the relationship. And I think for us, hopefully bring value to the relationship in the course of that. So let's break it down. And we'll start off with we'll start with estate planning. Um, what is it that drives people to come to you? I know as a real estate agent, I constantly talk to my customers about the importance of it. I think in California, anybody who owns a house should have an estate plan, probably means titling property in a trust. Most don't, many do. What is it that drives people to call you, do you think, when they actually make the phone call and write the check and sit down and do the work, sign the papers, bring them back to you? What is the motivating force that gets people to finally do that work?
That's a good question because it takes quite a lot of motivation to do this thing that nobody wants to do, right?
Right.
So you hit on a couple of them. Some people realize that when they've purchased their first home, that they now have a substantial asset worth protecting. So that's certainly a trigger. And I do work with a few local realtors. I waive the consultation fee, or I offer some kind of a discount on the service for a brand new homeowner. If they're coming to talk to me within 30, 60 days of the purchase. Certainly, losing a parent, and having to go through some kind of administration process yourself will motivate people that, to either realize, that went really well and I want to have a similar plan, or that went really poorly and I don't want it to be like that. Um, Certainly a diagnosis. I've had many clients who, are about to have a surgery and they're just worried about the outcome, or they have a terminal diagnosis. And so they know, that unavoidable moment is closer than ever before. Taking a trip, or long-term travel. I have some dear neighbors across the street from me. They every couple of years they take like a 6-month trip, and they're gone for 6 months. And we visit before that just to make sure that, because they just want to make sure everything's up to date. I recently heard from a former client from many years ago who had a very scary medical event, and that prompted her to want to review it. Let's review it and make sure it says what I want it to say. So it does take, something big in your life that really makes you think about, your final moments to realize, I want to have peace at that time. I don't want to be worried or anxious that things are left undone or my family doesn't know where the code to the safe is, any number of, big or small things that need to be documented in an estate plan.
One of the things that I found that triggers people to finally take action where it may or may not be too late, or certainly it's later than ideal, is when not just a diagnosis, but particularly related to memory, capacity, things like that. Um, I believe it's getting more common as we live longer physically, our mental facilities are declining, or maybe there's reasons for that. I don't know what that's all about. But it seems like there's more and more of these issues as a real estate agent than any time in my career. How do those cases come to you? And what are, when somebody starts losing capacity, have they lost capacity? What are some of the things that people can do or should think about when they're ending those stages?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a point of no return, and you want to get this done before that. And in some of these cases, I'm not able to discern, from the phone call with a son or a daughter,
Right.
if this person is able to communicate, to participate in making decisions about their own life. Do they have the capacity to understand what we're talking about and make those decisions? And there are certainly some folks who are compromised, verbally. Maybe they've had a stroke and it's difficult to talk like you and I are now. But oftentimes, a lot of folks are able to find a way to communicate their thoughts and their desires. And so as long as there is a way to communicate, and the person is clearly able to, what day it is, where we are sitting right now, you know who the president is, although that's become really controversial.
Ah,
But as
it
long as you're
changed on
just gonna,
Monday. Depends what time you ask on Monday, right?
right, right. So, there's certainly, we call it the mini mental exam. I've heard it referred to that way, that we try to just determine if a person is oriented to time and place. I'm reminded of a gentleman I worked with a while back. He was in those early stages of dementia, and his wife, urgently reached out to me, and we got to do this now. I don't know how much time he has left. And so I visited with him, had our initial consultation. Knew what we were doing. He knew he was expecting me. He knew what I was there for, was able to tell me what he wanted, prepared his documents. We met a second time to review them, and he was not doing as well. And in speaking with the wife afterwards, she said, your first appointment was in the morning. The second appointment happened in the afternoon. Could we try another morning appointment? And we did, and it took a couple visits before, we felt like, okay, he's back on it. He knows who we are. He knows what we're doing. And fortunately, we were able to help him sign his documents and get that done. So I'm, like many attorneys, I'm willing to take the time, to find those good moments when a person is, waxing and waning through the day. But I've also had to tell people, I'm sorry, I can't help you with this. I've been in the middle of a conversation with somebody that I thought was tracking, and in the middle of that conversation, he looks around and, where am I? And suddenly became disoriented. And so, it's really you got to have that good feeling about it, and feel very confident that this person knows what they're doing. And, another point you made, we are aging as a society. The boomers are aging, which is a whole lot of people
Hey,
once, right?
hey,
Hey,
hey.
hey, I'm right
Whoa.
behind you.
What are you saying? What are you saying about me?
But I've definitely seen in the last few years, I'd say the last 3 years, more and more children of aging parents who are calling me to say, "Can you help my parents?"
Yeah,
Rather than the person calling for themselves.
yeah.
And I think that's, for the most part, that's wonderful. You've got the kids who really care about their parents. You also have people who are angling to get something more than their siblings.
Yes.
But ultimately, I've got to sit down with the parent alone, with no other influence, and then be able to form my own opinion about whether this person has the capacity.
And so is that what it comes down to, is that somebody brings their parent in, or the parent comes in, and you have time on your own and you make an assessment? Are there times that you need some sort of professional assessment, maybe medical or professional legal specialist, or is it always something that you're able to make your own assessment as an attorney and rely on that?
Well, I think I'm happy to accept a doctor, a doctor's note or something that says, my patient doesn't have verbal capacity, but can communicate clearly and understands everything, can communicate in writing. I'm happy to accept that information, but still that informs my decision. At the end of the day, it's my license that's on the line, and so I've still got to make that, I've got to be comfortable myself, not just relying on what other people tell me.
Now, you're in Nevada, which is, I think, the eastern part of California, if I remember correctly, legally, where
Sure feels
people,
that way sometimes.
where Southern California, Northern California residents have perhaps second homes in Lake Tahoe, maybe the California side, maybe the Nevada side, maybe have second homes in Vegas on the Strip or something like that, vacation homes, rural vacation homes, and all that, all the lovely beauty that Nevada has to offer. Do you get involved in estate planning issues where people maybe have a main estate or based in California, but have secondary assets that they want to protect? Do you get consulted? In that case, you get consulted into the case with the main California attorney, or do you write something separate? How do you do estate planning for people who have assets in multiple states?
That's a good question. If it's a Nevada-based person, a Nevada resident, I can certainly help them prepare their estate plan that includes, other property in other states. Um, I don't often get consulted by, say a California attorney in the scenario that you described, because typically what an attorney would do is just deed that property into that California trust. Now it's part of the trust, right? And so usually you don't need to get another state attorney involved. But I did get a call recently. This was an attorney in Arizona. His client had relocated from Reno to Phoenix years ago, and they were just creating her trust. She has a commercial property here in Nevada, and of course, he's setting about preparing these deeds to transfer the properties, and he realizes that there's a problem. The woman's husband had passed away about 10 years ago. There was a probate here in Washoe County to transfer his assets, but nobody picked up on this nuance on the commercial deed where they owned it, they each owned it, but there was no survivorship language on the deed.
Mm.
And that property was not probated. So there's this commercial property that's still in his name with no way to get it out of her name. And so what started as an estate planning puzzle turns into a single asset probate here to transfer that one property.
Got it. Okay, so that's estate planning a little bit, and Joseph, I see here, says he's big encouraging estate planning for the entire family. 100%. I think, and I don't mean any offense to attorneys and the value they create. I do think that, in a competitive marketplace, we have to have maybe budget options and middle price options and then more customized options. And estate planning is probably in that same category. And yet, we don't be cheap and encourage people to maybe make mistakes or not get satisfied. Generally, I would say that, well, let me ask you this question. Since you're a professional, you can answer it legally. In my business experience, not legal, but business experience, people are better off with a bad estate plan, or I should say a cookie cutter, non-customized, non-personalized estate plan. They're better off 90% of the time to at least have that than nothing at all. Is that a fair statement, or is it too
Hmm.
high, or where would you stand on that
Oh,
assessment?
I'd love to go down this rabbit hole.
Let's go. Let's go.
I think really, it's lawyer answer, right? It depends. Depends on your situation.
Right.
If you've got a kid, one kid, or multiple kids, and your whole plan is to share equally. In other words, your plan really doesn't. Uh, it's not that different from the state's plan for you, right? California has
Right.
an estate plan for you. Nevada has an estate plan for you. That's in intestate succession, right? If your plan is not too different from that, then maybe there's not a whole lot of risk in using it, like you say, maybe download something, some kind of cookie cutter plan. The risk, of course, is that what you're downloading is customized to somebody else's unique situation.
Right.
And, a lot of that legalese is, I mean, good luck. You can pull out the dictionary, but there's a lot more that goes into understanding some of those clauses.
Right.
So, I mean, you hope that there's nothing in there that's going to, throw a wrench in it. Um, I mean, I've heard all kinds of things. A lot of folks get excited about the holographic will concept. In other words, you write the whole thing by hand, not with a computer, nothing can be typed. But if you write the whole thing by hand and you date it and sign it, that's a valid will, even without witnesses, right? And and maybe that can be helpful, right? If all it's saying is, give everything to Bobby and nothing to Cindy, it's
Right.
very clear what you intend, even without all of the legal jargon. Now, that might leave us with a whole lot of gaps in our understanding, when we actually set out to probate that will. But at least it's an expression of your wishes, right? I mean, I've sat down with folks to kind of, I go through the whole thing with them. Well, here's the state's plan for you. This is what intestate succession would look like in your situation. And then they say, well, that's exactly what I want. So I'm not going to prepare any kind of will. Oh, well, you should have something,
Right.
even if you feel like everything I have is designated to a beneficiary, and I have nothing, that's going to need to be probated. I still encourage you to have some kind of a will as a backup. So I don't, I can appreciate the argument that something is better than nothing.
Mhm.
But before I would download a stranger's document or copy my friend's will, I mean, I'm not a fan of these products, but I would encourage you to go to like trustandwill.com, or
Right.
LegalZoom, because at
Right.
least there is some customization in that process, and you're at least going to get those warnings and the guidance along the way about what choices you're making. So I agree with you. There's got to be some various, steps or, segments in that market. Not everybody needs a $3,500 trust, you know. But I don't know. Of course, I'm going to tell you that talking with a lawyer is the best thing you can do.
Well, I would not disagree with that. If you can get, as a realtor, trying to get my customer to take action, and I would love to get them to a consult and then turn it over at that point. I do find that encouraging them to some of the online services, trustandwill.com is one I've used, that they get started and they realize, well, I don't know how to do all this. I don't want to do all this. They ask questions. All of a sudden you realize, well, yeah, my wife did have a son from a prior marriage. Oh, yeah, I do have this business partner deal that needs a buy. Oh, well, maybe I do need some help. How do I handle this? So at least when they start with the free service or the inexpensive service, it starts them down the path that hopefully leads to getting the appropriate plan. And I think that's the obvious goal is to get everybody into the appropriate plan. And maybe my business approach is a little different
Yeah.
to get there. But again, I would say for all the realtors on this, you need to answer that question, what's best for your clients? And I think offer that to them relentlessly. And I'm constantly promoting estate planning on my real estate practice to my customers and to my team members to send to their customers because having a plan and being able to execute it are keys, the preparation. In any state, in almost any circumstance, you're probably better off if you own property. Now, if they don't own property, I think will probably is good enough. But and you don't want nothing because people will fight over the stupidest stuff if you don't have it covered in the will.
Oh yeah,
So
the
okay,
less you have, the harder they'll fight.
it's
You know what I mean?
amazing.
Because there's
It's
less to go
amazing. It's so
around.
true.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, you're definitely hitting on an issue that's near and dear to my heart, right? Like, how do I convince somebody that, that really needs to do this, that now's the time? I wrote a book about this. It's called I Hope You Die Laughing, and it's a beginner's guide to estate planning. And it's, for $20, it's cheaper than a lawyer, it's cheaper than trustandwill.com. But I'll teach you everything that I learned in law school about estates and probates, everything, some great anecdotes from my practice. And I do it with a dose of humor because a little sugar helps the medicine go down. But I think that just as you're saying, like as people start to realize everybody thinks their own situation is simple. My situation isn't that complicated. But like you said, you start to realize, oh, I do have a business partner. Oh, one of us was married in the past. We do have stepchildren and children in common. Like things get complicated really fast, and you start to appreciate the value of professional guidance.
So let's just take a quick break and kind of reset where we're at. I appreciate today. Our guest is Nicole Harvey. She's an attorney in Sparks, Nevada, just outside of Reno, Nevada. NevadaCounsel.com. We'll put up on the website. I'm sorry, we'll put up on the thing here, the website, NevadaCounsel.com. And you can schedule a consult with her by hitting the button there. There's a phone number and the services and all the appropriate stuff that tells you who she is. And her book, I Hope You Die Laughing, A Beginner's Guide to Estate Planning. We'll put that link into the YouTube. We'll put it as well into let me put it right now in the chat for those who are watching, who are on the thing live right now, because I think it's definitely worth supporting. And it goes on Amazon and you can buy it there. One thing I'm going to share with you guys, we're going to talk about in just a little bit, is Executorium is a great service. It's free to post on your information. It's also free to promote to your vendors. And this is where I found Nicole because she was advertising. We're going to talk a little bit about what is an ancillary probate, but she advertised in Clark County, and there's appraisers, there's a state administration, state auction, different types of vendors that you can put your name. There's Randy Mealmeister. He's been a guest on this program. Not only can you put your information on, promote yourself for free, and you also can pay to be in multiple counties. You can pay to have advertisements, but you also can support your vendors and your partners in your business and getting them on here as well. And I encourage you to take a look at the advertisers. And I'll just tell you that I've looked at Athenaeum, Estate Execs, and other service I've looked at, promoted on my website. And I met Nicole because I saw this ad and said, I know what ancillary probate is. Most people don't. We're going to talk about it, but how wonderful is she's advertising that because there are attorneys who would do it or can do it, but here's somebody who's advertising it, which probably means she's a little more proficient at it or more familiar with the basic concept. So executorium.com is a great service. Oh, I didn't even promote my own website. Hold on, my own program.
That is a great, I
Whoa.
really love Executorium. I learned about it listening to some of your older podcast episodes.
Well,
And I
thanks.
got on it right away, did my free listing in Washoe County. And then that ad you're seeing is a national ad
Yes,
because obviously you're going to be outside of Nevada if you need it. And I
by
just love
definition.
that idea.
And
Yeah.
I'm in LA. And so when the people, we have in LA this bar association listserv, people say, do you know an attorney in Nevada who knew an ancillary probate? Well, boom, there she's right there.
Right.
And again, for those of us, we'll talk a little bit about what that means. I went to a little too quickly, just real quick. We're probateweekly.com. If you want to register, if you're watching this on the replay, but want to get it live, put your email address in. Also, we do some phone number text if you want reminders. You don't have to, though. You can leave it blank. But if you want reminders, put your email in. And then we'll continue the conversation on Facebook. Our group name is Probate Weekly. We have over 4,100 members. And also, you can post any of your own probate or estate planning content there to get more views, likes, and all that good stuff. I put mine there. Here's Kevin Bemmel, who put up an interview that he does. He has a regular podcast. That's me. That's Courtney Rollins. He also has used it. So again, feel free to use that as your resource to promote your probate and estate planning related business. Don't put listings up or things like that. We want to be more on point. Okay, so let's switch from estate planning, which is how to build the barn and keep the cows in the barn, to probate, which from my perspective is when the cows get out, or sometimes there's things that are litigated in Los Angeles. All disputes in estate planning are adjudicated in probate court. So you can say in a sense it's probate, but more probate administration. Let's talk about probate administration. I guess um, um, you know, I'm in LA where everything is very litigious, everything is very structured. Nevada, like I said, I think by its nature, people are a little nicer, friendlier. Small counties are definitely trend friendlier. Talk about probate administration. What's the cost difference and time difference going through probate versus having a state plan to administer?
Sure. I appreciate that. I think that too. We've got, I mean, Washoe County is the second biggest county behind Clark. We have a probate commissioner who is like the judge assigned to just handling probate administration. If you're fighting about it, it'll go to a district court. But it probably is a slower pace, perhaps a friendlier pace than what you might find in LA. So in terms of cost, like many states, we have different levels of probate depending on how much value is in the estate. So if it's under 25,000, you're using a small estate affidavit. There's no probate. If you're at $100,000 between 25 and 100, we're looking at what's called a set aside, a petition to set aside the estate without probate. Still requires a petition. It's got to be, you got to get an order saying you're allowed to distribute. But it's there so that you don't have to go through so many hoops. I think that filing fee is about $169, $170 to get that done. Then you've got the summary administrations. Those are between 100 up to 300. It's funny, what ends up in a summary administration. Sometimes you have real estate, but these are either small parcels, undeveloped parcels, mobile homes, just like lower value properties. And then you've got anything over 300,000 as general administration. The filing fee for a summary is like $250. The general administration is it's $530 or $550, something like that. Attorney's fees are all based on there's a statute in Nevada that tells us what attorneys can charge. And I like to tell people that in a way that's a benefit, because no matter what probate lawyer you talk to, we're all going to charge you the same thing, right? So you should interview attorneys and find somebody that you feel comfortable with, because this is a financial transaction that it's going to make you feel very vulnerable. But the structure is it's like 4% of the first 100,000 in value, 3% of the second 100,000, 2% of everything up to $1 million. And then after a million, I think $1 million or $2 million, then you've got to just have a judge agree that it's okay to pay your fees. So that's going to be the same on any estate. Same with the administrator's fees. Typically on an ancillary probate, there is nobody here in the state to serve as administrator. So we're using a private fiduciary for that role. They're also capped by statutory fees. Slightly different structure. It's like 4% of the first 15, 3% of the next 85, 2% on it after that. So it's, yeah, there's a cost there. When I compare that to, if you had a trust, right? Now it really depends, like kind of like you alluded to, it really depends on if people are fighting or not,
Right.
right? If we have a trust and nobody's fighting, maybe you have a sole beneficiary or your beneficiaries just get along, and they're able to get through that without any conflict. A lot of trustees find, they get to a point that maybe they still need some legal assistance. In those cases, you're paying for time by the hour typically because the probate fees rule doesn't really apply to that. And so, you could rack up a small attorney bill, but really these are just like phone calls and guidance, really. I mean, I might prepare a deed or some, ancillary documents to assist, but your attorney's fees are going to be probably lower. The trustee usually is allowed to take a fee. A lot of trust documents will set that fee at like 2 to 3%. So you may not be saving anything on the administrator's fee. Although, a lot of trustees will waive that fee and just choose to distribute those funds among the beneficiaries. So you certainly can appreciate, a lot of cost savings by being prepared and setting it up where there's no incentive to fight, or to litigate the administration.
Do you go to court to Washoe County exclusively? Do you go to court in multiple counties? What's your practice look like physically?
Oh gosh, multiple counties. We're kind of an empty state. I don't know. This is a fun fact I like to share. Everybody's heard of Burning Man that we have out here in the Black Rock Desert. When Burning Man is set up in full swing, that is the third largest city in Nevada, behind Las Vegas and Reno. So, we're pretty spread out up here.
Yeah.
So I would say, most of my work is in Washoe County, but I'm certainly in neighboring counties like Carson City, Douglas County, Lyon County, Churchill County, kind of in this northwestern part of the state.
Okay. And so would you handle a case for those who don't know, she's in the northern part of Nevada, or Reno, near Lake Tahoe. Do you also handle cases in Clark County and Las Vegas, or we refer those to a colleague? Um,
I have. I've even been down in Nye County. Nye County is right next to Clark County.
mhm,
There's a little retirement community up there. It's very cute. A lot of people invested in dirt parcels many years ago, never
mhm,
developed them. And so I've had a few ancillary probates for those kind of parcels down there.
right,
I certainly don't mind doing that, but I also have a lot of colleagues in Las Vegas who are there. And
right,
sometimes the proximity matters,
right.
depending on the situation.
As a general rule, I would say that if the case is complicated, you'd want an attorney who practices in that jurisdiction, because if it's complicated, there'll be court rulings, and you want somebody who understands the procedures of that county. That judge perhaps maybe has relations, maybe has trust or established with the judge, and that's kind of what you're hiring. Would you agree with that? Is that important?
Oh,
I understand
100%.
on a routine matters you can go anywhere in the state, but it seems if something's litigated and you have hearings and that kind of process, that you really want an attorney who's really from that particular county.
Absolutely. At least here in Nevada, each one of these counties has its own set of rules. So you've got your, Nevada civil procedure rules that govern everybody. And then each district court has its own rules.
Right,
Some of the courts, like Washoe and Clark, have rules specific to probate. So if you're in Washoe County, you want to hire an attorney that's familiar with those rules, that lives with those rules every day. You're
right.
not going to bump their toes, if you will, as they get through that process.
And so what she said, and I think for those listening, particularly real estate agents, if you want to be an expert in an area in your county, not only should you be familiar with probate law in the state of Nevada, and the law is going to be the same throughout the state, but each county has or likely to have some county rules. Some are county rules for the court overall, and some are specific for probate court. In LA County, we have fairly extensive, local county rules that, for example, limits commissions you can charge on real estate transactions are confirmed by the court. And you should know those rules. And I'm surprised many attorneys don't. Now, obviously, you practice in 8 counties, hard to know them all. But if you're a real estate agent, you tend to work in one geography. Absolutely, you should know, are there local rules in probate in my county? And if so, you should have a copy of them. Usually they're downloadable on the website. On Executorium, I show you guys there's a feature there on the front page of resources. You go to the state and then the county, and if there are local rules, oftentimes they're referenced or available for download in the county. And so this is an area that I think many realtors miss, is knowing those rules so that you can, in many times, suggest to the attorney, hey, isn't the rule this? Or send them a copy of it. And I try to politely correct attorneys, because all I do is probate. They may be, like we said in the beginning, like Nicole talked about, being a more of a commercial transaction attorney who got pulled into probate. And I think they appreciate, polite, respectful support. Nobody wants to be corrected or treated like a school marm.
I agree with you completely. Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, maybe somebody gets bothered by that, but it doesn't bother me at all because either I remember or learn something, or it's an opportunity for my client and I to have a conversation and, learn about whatever that rule is or why it doesn't apply or why it does apply. In addition to familiarizing yourself with the rules, I often encourage, my friends who are realtors here, just listen into probate court. Here in Washoe, probate court is every Wednesday. There's a session at 10, a session at 2. It's all on Zoom. And I don't even mean like this, like it's on phone on Zoom. So
Right,
you call in, you mute yourself, you listen, and you can listen to every hearing every
right,
Wednesday if you want to.
right.
There's almost always a real estate transaction in every hearing. Lately, we've had a lot more bidding activity, which is always exciting
Mm.
in these hearings. But if you're thinking of getting into it or you've done one or two and you're like, man, I don't really get it, just sit and watch court. I mean, I know nobody has a lot of time maybe for that, but it is so educational. And I think it's helpful to see the interaction between the judge and the lawyers, and you can watch people who are representing themselves. At least our commissioner up here is really gentle with people. And though he can't give legal advice, he's very good at gently guiding people along. And so there's a lot to learn, just by observing that.
That's golden information. I recommend this all the time to real estate agents. I did this when I started in probate. Our coach in this training program suggested go to court one day, and I went, and it was fascinating because there's so much going on. Now, this was back pre-COVID when the courtrooms were packed. Nowadays, it's packed online, and so you have to kind of pay attention. But just like Nicole said, you learn rulings. You'll see judges that will, I won't say bend the rules, but they have certain discretion to change rules that aren't hard and fast. And then because I saw that, I could tell the attorney, hey, even though the law says you can't sell the property for less than 90% of the court's probate referee report, I've seen judges do that when you gave them good reason to use their discretion. The truth is, I think that in California, the judge can do whatever they want if they have the right information, they might go along with it. And so I would encourage everybody, particularly in smaller counties. Like she said, there's only court on Wednesday. It's only at 10 and 2. If you're a real estate agent focused on probate, what else do you have to do but listen in and hear those cases, see those attorneys, send them a note. Hey, Nicole, I saw you on this case. Good job. Congratulations on getting your approved. If I can help you, please let me know. Or disputes. And so definitely a great way to learn. And I encourage everybody to go in the court and follow up in that process.
Yeah.
One of the things that caught my eye on your advertisement on Executorium was that you advertised specifically for ancillary probates. So can you explain kind of what ancillary probates are and then how you service that need in the marketplace?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think every state probably has a version of this. In Nevada, an ancillary probate is when the property owner is not a Nevada resident, but they own real property in the state of Nevada, and they've passed away. So in that situation, a probate might open, in California, in that other state, but that California court doesn't have jurisdiction over Nevada dirt, over Nevada real estate. So the ancillary probate gets opened in Nevada after the California probate is open. So oftentimes in that California petition, they'll state it. There's also property in Nevada. We're going to open an ancillary probate. The will gets proved in that other jurisdiction, in California in this case. So it'll be proved and accepted, and then we petition here to the Nevada court and say, hey, there's this other probate going on. The will's already been proved. Here's a copy of it. There's this real estate here in our county, and we've got to administer it, alongside this domiciliary probate is what the primary probate would be called. And so I mean, that's essentially what that process is a way to administer what would be foreign property in California by using the Nevada court here.
And the legal term foreign in law refers to foreign states. It's interesting because
Right.
we're the United States of America. Most of us grew up at a time when we're all kind of one country. But the law does use that word. It's the oddest thing because you go foreign. Does that mean it's like from
Right.
Mexico? No, it means it's from Nevada is foreign, or if you're in Nevada, California is foreign. And it just does mean that, California law is not going to recognize a an administrator, but they will recognize if it's titled in the estate, or there's a will's already been created, then they'll recognize that, and then the money gets sent to that estate, not to a person, most commonly. So it's just a way to interstate handle the process because we don't have one national probate law. It's a connection of, I guess, legal states.
Right.
How
Yeah.
often does that happen? How often is that part of your business, or is that you want more of that business, I guess, if you're advertising
Sure.
for
I
it?
mean,
So,
yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, it's not any simpler than handling a domestic probate. You know, it's the same process. In some ways, it might even be more complicated because we're waiting on proceedings that we can't influence or control in another state.
right,
Um, but I don't know, a lot of my clients tend to be from out of state. Yeah, you know, so the ancillary thing fits right in with
right,
the mix of cases here.
right.
And it's interesting, you know, what we can do in that process. Like just like in a California probate, we could sell it, you know, sell the real estate here in Nevada through the Nevada probate, and then we would send the funds to the estate bank account in California and close it out here. You know, other times, uh, the state is supposed to be distributed to people, right? Maybe that's to one person or to multiple people. But in that case, we've got to, you know, let the California one play out so that we get that distribution order, and then we can distribute, right? Because what we can't do is distribute property before we know the creditors are paid. You know, we can't distribute property until we know that there's no argument about who's getting what. So you know, it's just kind of case by case. Sometimes these are very quick, sometimes they are not.
Interesting side story here. A friend shouted out and said, "Hello, how are we doing in the fires?" And the answer is, I live about 10 miles from any of the fires, so we're not really directly affected. I have family and friends who've been evacuated. I had clients who had houses burned down. I had a prospect where they moved the mother, in particular, to Nevada. He lived in LA, and this daughter and son-in-law wanted to move mom to be nearby, and so she had a house in the Palisades, and they moved her out about 3 weeks ago,
Oh my
and then
goodness.
last week the house burned down, and so, now there's not probate, but she'd set up a trust, but some questions with her capacity because she's old. That's why they're moving her because she has some issues, and
Mhm.
so they kind of dodge it by having the estate plan done already, or if she had passed in the house,
Yeah.
or she already moved but left the house there to burn down. How do you handle that? Well, if she moves to Nevada and passes Nevada, you have a Nevada probate, but you have a California property. That's where you need an ancillary property, an ancillary probate in California. So that's where these things kind of come up,
Yeah.
these cross-state issues. So,
My goodness.
oh,
How lucky is she that she moved 3 weeks ago? That's remarkable.
well, it's interesting because, as a real estate agent, other agents were saying to her, spend a couple months and pretty the place up and put the market after the Super Bowl. And I said, it's a teardown. It was one of the
Mm.
smaller unremodeled houses in the Palisades that would sell for about 2 million. That'd be torn down and built into about a $6 million mansion. I said, just sell and get the cash, and they dilly-dallied around, and now they're gonna have to wait to get paid by insurance. And
Mm.
I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but insurance is not going to be so simple in that area. There's a whole press on that, a whole thing about the state insuring. Does the state have enough money? The state fund has $700 million of reserves, but how many houses are they have to pay out on? So I have to wait for insurance money, and then theoretically, are they going to sell it as a lot in a burned down house? Maybe. Will people be building soon there? Who knows? So
Oh,
yes, they're lucky she got out and she's safe, thank God, and they'll
yeah.
get something. But these situations, as realtors in that area, it's really going to be a long-term, I think, mess. It's not simple as get insurance money and you're going to go on a spending spree for a new house. It's not quick like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit and come from a business point of view, both your business development, and we'll speak to people on the call who are looking to do business with you. I noticed, for example, we have kind of a neighbor of yours, I think, Ann Bollinger, is up in the area and she wants to reach out. So let's talk about kind of the process. If you had a niece or nephew who was starting in real estate and was interested in probate, thought it was interested, found a calling for it, wanted to build a business in that area, what would you recommend for them as far as building their business as a real estate agent to do business with attorneys like yourself in this space?
You mean besides watching your podcast?
Well, obviously, thank you. I'm too modest to suggest that, but probateweekly.com, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, truly, I think what you provide is an extraordinary resource. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks.
Also, Executorium, which puts people in touch with each other, and you can see, who's working in what areas. But beyond that, I think that, relationship building with attorneys in the field is really the critical thing. And you were right in the beginning when you said cold calls probably aren't going to do it. I'm not going to take your call out of the blue, probably, or we might talk briefly and, oh, that's great. Yeah, you do probates, but, as soon as we get off the phone, I don't have your business card. I haven't met you, and this is relationship building. I've learned that through my career. Um, it takes time to build a relationship. So, call me and let's schedule coffee. Let's schedule a time to sit down with each other, and tell me about what you're interested in, what your experience is so far. If you don't have any experience in probate, I'm going to ask what you're doing next Wednesday and tell you to join me on the call for my next hearing. And aside from that, I know here in Washoe County we have a county bar association. And our county bar has non-attorney members, although I can't remember what the name is they give them.
Sorry,
But
affiliate?
affiliate, that's it. You can be an
Yeah,
affiliate member of a
yeah,
bar organization without being an attorney. That's a fantastic way to find out who are the lawyers,
yeah,
right? Because there's plenty of lawyers who don't have billboards and they're doing huge business, right? And how else are you going to find out short of sitting in court or joining their bar association? Here we have within the county bar, there's a probate bar group. They have a monthly lunch. Don't miss it.
yeah,
Come and, have a casino lunch and listen to a presentation, but most importantly, shake hands with the people in
yeah.
the room, and start building your own, visibility and credibility. And I mean, that's really the most important thing, I think. I think the more people get to know you and see you, making an active effort to get into the industry, now you're at the tip of my tongue when I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to get a realtor for this. I'm going to call that gal that's just starting out. Maybe this will be her first one, and at least at this point in my career, I'm happy to do that. Brand new lawyer who's still figuring it out for themselves might not be the connection you're looking for,
Right.
but folks who feel comfortable in this field are probably more likely to invite you, to work with their clients and, go through a probate process with them.
And so just to kind of recap what you said a little bit, when you go to these networking opportunities, it's really important, I think, to go there for the purpose of learning and meeting people, not for the purpose of getting referrals. Too often people go
Right.
expecting they're going to get a lead right away. And I just don't think it's about building relationship. Well, you start when you meet the person, and the relationship can start from there, and you have to have a way to maintain that. Maybe subsequent lunches, maybe if you're going to a networking event, before the next month's event, sending an email saying, "Hey, Nicole, I met you at the last luncheon. This week's luncheon is about whatever, trust administration or ancillary probates. Do you plan to go? I'd love to catch up with you there." Or offering to buy them the lunch if there's a cost associated
Sure.
with it is a way to get
Yeah.
in. The other thing I want to ask is, you know, um, my business has been built lately. I've really grown more on people I already knew who I didn't know they are involved with probate. And as I mentioned, I had a couple of attorneys who were, I would think of them more as civil litigator or civil attorneys who happen to have great clients who needed some probate work along the way. How might somebody you already have friends. You already go to whatever church, religious organization, political organization, social group, whatever you do, separate even from the attorney part. You have a life you live. You play pickleball or tennis or golf or something. How many people do you know through those things that you've never asked the question what they do and dug deeper to find out, oh, wow, you do civil litigation. Do you ever come across probate? That's interesting. I'm going to the probate luncheon next week. Are you planning to go? It becomes an opportunity. And so I think that you mentioned networking and trust, that it's one thing to meet new people to develop relations. It's another thing to find people who already know, like, and trust you and discover either they overlap your business, or their spouse overlaps your business, or their significant other overlaps your business, or their child works at one of those law firms. So I definitely think it's important. Have you had that occasion where you met somebody who
Oh,
knew you
yeah.
through? Can you share a
Yeah,
little bit of?
definitely. Yeah, you're reminding me of my eye doctor. I've had the same eye doctor for almost 10 years. We golf together. You know what I mean? Like we've known each other a long time. And I thought we've talked with each other about our business a lot over the years.
Right.
And then not too long ago, she reached out and said, "Hey, my husband's father passed away unexpectedly. Do you know an attorney that could sit down with us and explain to us what to do?" I
And see, I
sure
want to hit
do.
you on the head because how do you not know you did it already? With
Right.
social media today, it's like it costs nothing to tell everybody.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, how did this get, you know what? I'd be happy to come over and sit down with your family and help you through this. So I mean, you make a great point. And I've always felt like probate specifically, everyone is a referral source.
Yes.
Everyone will be touched by the loss of a friend or a loved one at some point in their lives. So everyone's a referral source. But you also don't want to be that person that just drones on and on about their work and what they do. So I try to, when I think about networking, and I think you're spot on when you say you can't go to an event and expect a referral immediately. When I meet somebody for the first time or when I'm reconnecting with somebody I haven't seen, I try to go there in mind with a success story, a recent success story that has something to do with the referral I'm looking for. And I also try, every week or 2 weeks, I try to think of like, who's my ideal referral? Who do I want to talk to this week? Like for a while, a few months ago, it was people moving to Nevada from another state, mostly California,
Imagine
who
that.
still have a California estate plan and they need to have that updated. And I started putting that out there to people. And what do you suppose my calendar was flooded with? Exactly what I asked for. So it's tough. I don't want to beat people over the head with, "Hey, did you know I do this and this and this?" But by having that a success story, "Oh, I helped this family. We just closed a probate. It went so smoothly." And people will say, "Wow, really? I thought probate was awful." Well, we try to make it less awful. It's really my goal to be as efficient and transparent with everybody as possible, and it tends to go pretty smoothly. And people remember that because that's not the story that they're used to hearing. So have that success story, have that ask, in your hip pocket. And then people will start to associate that ask with you, right? And the next time they talk to somebody who's in that situation, they're going to remember you. Say, "God, you got to talk to my friend Nicole," you know?
Well, and I think
So,
that's the power of social media is you have the chance not to bombard people when they don't want it, but it's an appropriate place to put what you do. But I have the same experience all the time where people say, "Well, I didn't know you do probate real estate." Like, are you freaking kidding me? I have 5,000 subscribers on my
big real
YouTube
estate
channel.
guy.
I post up all the time. People say to me, "Bill, I see your stuff on Facebook like every day. How do you not know what I do?" My own family members don't know what I do. It's just,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
literally had it happen on Saturday at lunch. Somebody said, "Oh, I thought you did home loans or something." Like,
Oh my God.
how, how, as hard as I work at this, sometimes I'm
Yeah,
just so, but I think for us as real estate agents, we don't realize people are busy. They don't really pay attention to what you do. You've got to
yeah,
remind them. And I think also do it in a way that's entertaining and educational, and you'll get more and more people to remember you. But I tell people all the time, I don't think even a quarter of my best friends or family have any idea what I do. We're all, and you might say, "Well, gee, I see you on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and all that. And I send out emails and they get all that stuff too." But that's the power of distraction and why we
yeah.
need to do this stuff so consistently. So
Yeah.
thanks for
Well, I think
helping.
we all have a tendency when we read or see something that we don't understand, our brain just kind of blinks it out. Just,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. And probate is kind of a mystery. It's not a word people hear a lot. So maybe it gets lost in that jumble too.
But also, I think people don't need it today, right? Like, I don't need to worry about probate today because, I'm alive.
Right.
Well, that's the whole point. But, that's where our minds go. And so unless you're really giving people something that's interesting and even now on the flip side, I will say for those watching, I have family and friends who are big fans of my email and podcasts and stuff who have no, I've done no business with, but they just enjoy it. Well, but someday they'll end up calling me with a question. That's how the business comes. And so I think, again, like Nicole said, networking is great, but at the same time, make sure you pay attention to the people in your life around you. And I also feel like they're the ones who we want to help the most. Like, I'm all for helping strangers. I'm not against it, but why would I not want to help my best friends and family and community members to help build a stronger family and community? Of course, that's what we want to do. So,
Right.
okay, well, look, Nicole, I guess we'll just wrap up. Last question would be, what changes, if any, do you see in California? We had a pretty significant change in the small probate estate law. I'm not sure how that shakes out yet. They're still working on the forms, and the criminals haven't finished figuring out how to ruin all that yet. But what changes, if any, do you see in your business for the upcoming year, or that you would direct people to kind of pay attention to for the upcoming year or years?
So here in Nevada, we don't have state estate tax, and that's never, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But unlike California, our legislature is only in session once every 2 years. And we are about to be in session this year in about a month, a couple of weeks actually. We're in middle December. And so right now, the bill draft requests are just coming in. And we're just starting to learn what's on the table this year. So this is a really exciting time for us to kind of watch and see, what's going to be cut, what are we going to add, what do we need to, take the day off and go down to Carson City and advocate for. But I think by the time April and May roll around, we'll have a pretty good idea what, if anything, has changed in our probate structure here.
I know nationally that we have a big change that's scheduled to go down in the amount of the exemption for an estate plan. And yet the same president who signed that change that expires is coming back in. Of course, nothing's been done yet. So as we sit here today, how do you advise clients who may today fall in that window that they're exposed unless the laws, amended or changed or passed, whatever, yet you don't know that's going to happen. And even if he stands on a podium and says, I want this to happen, it doesn't happen like that. It's got to be passed and approved and all that process. So how do you advise clients in this kind of uncertainty as far as, that they're in the middle right now?
So not the first major uncertainty that I've experienced in my practice. You might remember in 2010 when the estate tax seemed to go away,
Right.
and we didn't know what level it was going to come back at. And that was a nail-biting time too. It was like,
Yeah.
well, do we plan for that exemption to be very low, or is it going to come back higher? So in these times of uncertainty, and I feel like this applies in a lot of aspects of life, is take a deep breath and let's see what changes. And when something changes, then if we need to adapt to it, we'll do it. But I'm not a big fan of changing documents before you know what's going to happen next.
Right.
So, there may be a time coming up where we're moving quickly
Right.
to update some plans and inform people and let people know that they need to do that.
Right.
But who knows? It could come out really differently, where we end up not having to change much at all. So I'm definitely in the let's wait and see what happens camp.
But yet, I'm sure you're in the same, at the same time, you're in the, well, once something happens, let's jump on it right away and correct things,
Exactly.
because these are significant changes that can really affect people one way or the other. If it turns out it's not going to be extended, that's a whole nother, you probably have to go back and review people's plans, because in essence, it's a change without a change, in a sense, right? It's a sunset of a
Right.
law. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, stay tuned, everybody. Estate planning is going to be exciting this year, one way or the other. I'm sure it's what has otherwise been a quiet topic is going to become important politically, like everything else. And don't want to poison it with politics, but it does affect the law and it does affect our business, and so we want to be smart about it. Nicole, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I know, we had a fun time previously, and this first time on the podcast. I really appreciate you being on here, educating, being willing to share with yourself. We're going to direct people to your website, which is nevadacounsel.com, nevadacounsel.com. And on there, if you want to, you can click and set up a consult, as well as there's a phone number there. And we were joking a little bit before that people tend to both sign up and then call at the same time. I guess I would say feel free to do that, because you want to get her attention, and obviously feel very comfortable. And then also, as a supportive executorium, thank you on behalf of that community. I appreciate that. And look forward to seeing you again soon, and regularly. Thanks, Nicole, so much.
Right. Thanks so much for having me today, Bill.
Thank you. And then for the rest of you on the call, again, this is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday. If you want to participate, love to have you sign up. You can get reminders, and that way we'll send an email out to you. Also, from time to time, we send text reminders. So if you want to be reminded there, you don't need to. It's optional, but certainly put your email address. We'll send the link as well as to past episodes. You can scroll down and see the past episodes, as well as, if you prefer audio format and other formats on Spotify and YouTube and all, Apple and all that stuff is on there as well. And then you continue the conversation on our Facebook group, probateweekly.com. And we have over 4,000 members. Feel free to post your probate and estate planning related content to get more views and likes and leverage for your social media as well there. Again, I'm Bill Gross. I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. BillGrossProbate.com is my website. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon.